I'd like to call to order the Wyoming Valley West School District work session for Wednesday, June 5th at 7:13. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wilson,
Here.
Mr. Damascus,
Here.
Mr. Hardwick,
Mr. Hardwick, are you on Zoom? He's on Zoom.
Mr. Keating,
Present.
Mr. McGinley,
Present.
Mr. Perfetto,
Here.
Mr. Kubuski,
Here.
Mrs. Cassatt. Here. Mr. Camus.
Here. A moment of silence followed by the salute to our flag, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice. I'll do the. Okay. I'd like to announce there was an executive session held prior to this meeting to discuss two personnel contracts. May we have the review from the audit report of June 30, 2023 by BBD?
All right, I'll be quick since this is kind of a historical perspective, but it's super important. I think these results have been out for a while. Just another thing, just so everybody knows, this is the last BBD report. Our firm merged with another firm, so it's going to have a different name next year. So, but it will still be me giving the presentations, still the same staff. But that was effective as of April 1st, 2024. So like I said, I'll be really brief and kind of just go over the highlights of the report that's been out there. Just to kind of highlight basically probably the most important part of the audit report being the independent auditors report. Basically outlining the different sections of the independent auditors report, basically stating that the numbers being presented in the audit report for the year ended December 31st, June 30th, 2023 were fairly presented. Then it kind of just outlines the different sections of the audit report, required supplementary information. We're going to go over some of that today. The budgetary comparison schedule for the general fund, management's discussion analysis, two important pieces. Just pointing this out, these are two sections of the audit report. I think I've pointed this out in the past. We don't audit these sections because the MD&A has some historical perspective. I mean, it gives management's perspective of the financial activities for the year. And it also talks about some future factors. Since the audit's historical, it gives management the ability to talk about, not only what happened during 2023, but also to talk about things that are going to impact the school district in the future. The budgetary comparison schedule, we don't give an opinion on this because we're only auditing your actual numbers. But the budgetary information that's included in there, we're not auditing it, but in the context of how the school district did for the year ended June 30th, 2023, it's pretty important. Also supplementary information as part of our audit. There's a schedule of expenditures of federal awards, and that was fairly presented within the audit report in relation to the rest of the audit. So I'm going to kind of just focus on the general fund here tonight. It's your major fund. So if you get the full audit document back on page 50 of the audit report, you're going to see the breakdown of revenues, expenditures, and how it did with budget, as you're going to see. And I think everybody knows this, most of the variance that you're going to see in related to the current year, and there's a reason why, is that your revenues did better than anticipated. By about almost $11.7 million compared to budget. And it's kind of broken down into the different sections: local source revenues, state source revenues, federal source revenues. So there's a reason for each one of those. But those things that you can control as a board and as management related to expenditures, they're kind of right in line, $1.1 million over budget. And the only reason why they're kind of over budget is because it's going to line up directly with those expenditures related to those reimbursement grants, whether it be ESSER, Title I. So there were revenues in excess of what was originally anticipated. So reimbursement grants, you have a dollar for dollar revenue and expenditure related to it. So even though those expenditures are over budget, most of it's related to revenue over budget on the line above it. So as you can see at the beginning of the year, the school district had a deficit a couple years ago. So they were trying to build up their fund balance. So there was a positive, you're anticipating a positive change in your fund balance of about $2 million to continue to build that up. It actually came in at $12.5 million being driven by those revenues we talked about, for a positive variance of $10.6 million. Fund balance at the beginning of the year was $5.5 million. End of the year, when you add that in, 18 million.
Hey, just quick for clarification purposes for the board, just so everyone understands that significant bump in fund balance includes a lot of the ESSER's
Yeah.
revenue, correct?
Correct. Yep. And that's the next slide.
And just when that goes away, that number is going to slide back to where the title numbers generally trend.
Yeah, typically. So I'm going to point that out here too. So here's that $11 million and the reasons why. Number one, just as in the past couple of years, your local source revenues, your earned income taxes have been doing really well. For the general, your real estate taxes have been collecting well. Last year in 2022, your realty transfer taxes actually did really well. But as the EIT continues to do well, in 2023, also there was the investment income that did really good in 2023. When you put your budget together for 22-23, no one could have anticipated the 5% increase in the federal funds rate. The state source revenue, typically this number is like right on budget. But if everybody remembers, when you started the 22-23 budget, you passed it, not knowing what the state was going to do. The state actually came in and actually gave you not only more in your basic ed and special education subsidy monies, you also got the level 1 supplement that you didn't anticipate. So now you kind of know moving forward what those monies are going to be like. So I mean, that's like a 10% increase that wasn't anticipated, and all the school districts had this issue across the state. And there's that federal source revenue that you were talking about. A lot of it's being offset by expenditures. Some of it's being offset by one-time expenditures. Some of it's to kind of supplement the actual operating budget. But at the end of the day, there's that $11.8 million. But like you said, that money will be going away, and you'll see a more typical year related to, basically your title and IDA funding for federal funds within your general fund. So there is a reason why the revenue, if you go to, I feel like I'm saying the same thing at all my school districts, the revenues are driving the increases in the fund balance, not those line items that you can control like expenditures. So here's your expenditures, and I kind of put that at the bottom there too. So a lot of those ESSER expenditures that were over budget or in that support service line items, a lot of IT expenditures were put in there, some one-time facility acquisition, construction, and improvement expenditures in there. But overall, you're going to have some ups, you're going to have some downs in any given year. When you look at $1.1 million on $80 million of expenditures, some of which are one-time related to ESSER. Also, I think I pointed on the other slide, your Title I allocation that came in during the current year, almost more than is originally anticipated as well. But the story here is definitely the revenue. So we talked about an $18 million fund balance and what that looks like. So I just put together a little balance sheet. Basically, what the $18 million is nothing more than the aggregate current assets over your aggregate current liabilities. And as you can see, most of your assets are liquid at year end. $22.3 million is cash. Due from other governments, PDE reimburses you for things such as retirement, Social Security. For the ESSER grants, you may have incurred expenditures, and we recognize that revenue that didn't come in until after year end. And all that stuff is received shortly after year end. It could be used for current expenditures and current liabilities. So as you come down to liabilities, accounts payable, this is all invoices that come in right after year end that pertain to 2022, 2023. And I think I've said this in the past, accrued salaries and benefits, this is your biggest liability. It's kind of like your teachers work through June 30th. You need to pay them out over July and August. And also there's a big PSERS payment that's accrued through June 30th, and that all gets paid out after year end. So those are all salaries and benefits that are accrued as of June 30th and not paid out until July, August, September. So in the case of the district here, when you weren't doing so well, that kind of benefited you. because of the fact that you didn't have to pay all those bills right away. And you had like a natural float build in there, which allowed you to collect some tax revenue to pay for last year's, but we obviously don't have that situation now. So your fund balance, there's the $18 million. And we never had this problem before either. We actually had to commit fund balance because PDE only allows you to have 8% of your next year's expenditure budget as unassigned for future. So in the case of the district, and it makes sense, most school districts do this. Since it's one-time revenues, you're going to commit that fund balance for one-time expenditures related to capital projects. Those amounts can be uncommitted and put to unassigned if that goes below 8%. But I think it's a prudent thing given the needs of the district, and then having the committed fund balance being used for capital projects. There's 2 more slides in here. I just want to kind of show the visual of where the fund balance has been, the past 10 years. So I think if you go back to 2013, it kind of get dipped. You held on there for a couple of years at like $2 million. Then it went into the negative, and then the last 2 years, the additional monies and the better than anticipated economy, the monies came in, and now this gives you as a school board flexibility, number one, when you're doing your budget, options to do, one-time capital expenditures, et cetera. Whereas in the past, you didn't have that flexibility, and you were kind of just trying to do an annual budget. But now you can take money from the fund balance to balance your budget. You can take the money and use it for capital projects, et cetera. So great situation to be in for the school district. First sentence here, no findings to report on internal control. Yes, there are issues, within the business office reporting, et cetera. I know you're having monitoring, but these are no findings that we consider significant deficiencies and material weaknesses. We've been working with Kim, that's been in here with my staff, and we're working with her and kind of improving some of the reporting with the federal funds. We're going to work with the new business manager on improving some of the reporting within the business office. But what we consider significant deficiency or material weakness, there's, coding issues, et cetera, that I wouldn't consider that. But we're working with them on improving that reporting, not only for our purposes, but also for the state. There is a annual financial report that was filed with the Pennsylvania Department of Education in a timely fashion. Financial statements were posted to Emma for your bond reporting. And then also the single audit was filed with the audit clearinghouse by 9 months after 9 months of year end, which is March 31st. So we really pushed to get that done as well. So overall, the school district, is in a good spot financially. We're going to continue to work on improving, some of the business office operations, and continue to work with them with recommendations to, get things up to speed. I don't know if any questions, concerns. I know it's, we're already talking about 25, 26, so probably.
If
I may.
Carl, right?
Yes.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Yes, Mr. McGinley.
Right. I just want to ask, because of, I'm new, is there any deficiencies from previous years that carried forward?
Yeah, some of the things that I want to work with the business office, especially is some of the activity funds, getting those automated and so forth like that, especially pertaining to the high school and so forth like that. So I think that's a project that Rob's going to take on in terms of that. And then also, I know a lot with the coding of some of the funds and getting things in the right bucket. So when you look at governmental accounting, everything's a bucket. So we just looked at the general fund bucket, and within the general fund bucket, there's buckets for regular education, special education, vocational education. It just keeps on getting narrower and narrower into salaries and so forth. And then once you get to that section, there's like funding source codes. You want to make sure that all these federal awards and all these different grants that you get are in their bucket. So, and there's a capital projects bucket, a food service bucket, make sure everything's being there. So it's just kind of improving those reporting of all those types of, expenditures, revenues and expenditures.
And when you make your final audit, you have recommendations there for.
There's nothing in the
Programs
actual
or-
audit document, but we usually issue something like a separate management letter, especially with
Okay.
the activity funds. Like I said, nothing rose to the level that would need to go in the report that needs to get reported to a federal agency related to any kind of significant deficiencies and material weakness, but there are different improvements to make.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I just a kind of couple questions. The federal sources, just so the 11.4 million, that includes money that was part of the ESSERs.
That is correct.
So when we look at the fund balance and the committed for the ESSER's work that's currently going on or being completed, is that where we have the capital, the committed to the capital project? Is that for the ESSER's projects that we're doing?
Yes,
All your capital, yeah.
In
No, no,
ESSER's
no,
hand?
no, that, the committed amount that's up there, that's not ESSER money. You had the money that's going on, the projects that are going on right now are not captured in here at all. So that's unspent money that hasn't been received yet. So it's not captured within the
So
twenty.
I guess out of that 11.4, do we owe to pay the ESSER's work? And I'm just, is out of that 11.4,
No, that 11.4 is just,
that's, I
Right,
mean,
that-
that's,
that's
but I
just-
get, yeah,
that's
I
already
guess I'm
expected.
going back to our fund balance and everything.
that's already, that 11.4 is just money that came in that already paid for expenditures.
Have,
So
have
that's-
we paid all our ESSER's bills today, I guess is the question. You know, and maybe it's too simple of a question, but are there any other projects from ESSER's that got to come out of this budget next year that, are we accounting for all those ESSER's?
yeah, well, there is ESSER money that will be coming out next year. But I believe we,
It needs to be spent by September 30th, 2024.
yes.
And where do we highlight that? We don't have that in our budget, or isn't?
I did not put any ESSER money, any ESSER revenue or any ESSER expenditures in the 24-25 budget, because it's gonna be a wash. What you receive.
Unless
is-
they go over budget,
well,
then they'll
yeah,
come out of the general. Is
Yes,
that-
exactly. If it goes over budget, then it comes out of general fund.
Thank you.
So it's kind of evolved the ESSER money. You were kind of using it a little bit for operating at first to kind of balance the budgets a little bit, but now that you're in a better financial position, you don't necessarily need to do that, and you're using it more correctly to use it for one-time, capital items going forward.
But, and that's what I meant at the last meeting where I stated how we need to spend that wisely, because we've listened to him. He said one time, multiple times over, because that pot of money is gonna go away.
Yeah, and what's gonna happen is, well, thank God the last 2 years happened, because if you were using that for operations, that's a hole in your budget, and where does that, you'll never get that money back. So,
Correct, and
Yeah, yeah.
at some point also, the bumps we've received in state funding also are going to level off, and, where he did say, we're in a good range, spending only, I believe the number was 1.16 million more in expenses than we budgeted. But moving forward, as our operational expenses continue to compound and those other monies go away, we will eat into that unassigned fund balance quickly. That's why it's important to spend it wisely and protect it.
Anyone else? Well, Carl, thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it again. Okay, moving on. We have no statements from interested citizens tonight. No one signed in. Does anybody want to speak this evening? I'll do committee reports. Mr. Damascus, do you have anything?
Two things, we kind of mentioned, we got our update, proposal for the work at the track at the high school. This is to kind of replace, if you've been up the track, the rubber that's around the lanes, the outside lanes. We use that not only for obviously track, but we use it for gym class, up at the high school for multiple classes during the year. And we also, it is open to the public for, to use it to whatever exercise or whatever. So the updated price on that I forwarded to everybody was $385. That's from the same company that did our work at the, redid the turf. That's something I'd like to add to the budget. I don't know if we have the money to do it. But anyway, everybody has that, proposal, from them. Second on the agenda, we had an athletic committee meeting a couple weeks ago. And our wrestling coach, is kind of asking us to move ahead with the official approval of the, women's, wrestling for our district. Now, as we talked about, it's a PIAA sanctioned, team. We've had a little bit of success. Feels that we'll have a lot more if we have just a pure, women's program up there. So I'd like to get that on the agenda if we can and vote on it. Cost wise, I don't think, right now we haven't, officially established the numbers or costs, but my recommendation would be a sort of a stipend or additional, paid to the head coach of the boys program, to be both head coach for boys and girls, and the recommendation for an assistant coach, specific assignment to the girls team. So I think it's about 4,000. I don't, Nick's probably not here, but for that range. So I think that the cost initially to our district would be for that, just the 2 coaching positions, to start the sport up. So that is on the agenda to talk about. I don't know if anybody has any questions about it.
I mean, I can.
Hey, Brian, it's Hardwick. Can
Oh,
you
hey.
hear me?
Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. Within the division of our school, will this ladies wrestling team, will there be enough competition, I guess?
Well, there are 2 girls that are returning from last year's team. I can't tell you how many will join up, but according to Ryan, who I have a lot of faith in, Vasello, the head coach, he feels that he'll get a lot more, wrestlers coming out when they know it's going to be female versus female wrestlers, instead of wrestling the boys, and vice versa. So as far as local competition, Wilkes-Barre, Hazelton, several of the high schools in the area have it. The way they do the programs now is it used to be just JV wrestled and then varsity. What they'll do is have a JV, then a girls, then the boys varsity. We're all wrestle on the same day in the same bus, so transportation shouldn't be any more. And as we learned last year, that they definitely go to Hershey to wrestle if they, make it there. So, it's hard to say how many will go out, but I think they'll definitely have more than 2.
Okay, thank you. And I too, like you, strongly follow Coach Vasello's inclinations.
Yep.
I have one question, if I may. And Brian, I guess you follow this stuff. Did you notice that the girls' flag football has now been approved?
I did see that. It does seem that it's so the 2 biggest areas where they did it are in Philadelphia,
Mhm.
in Pittsburgh,
Mhm.
where coincidentally they have pro football teams. And the professional football teams are actually sponsoring some of these new teams. So I haven't heard of anybody locally looking into doing it yet, but I'm sure it might be looked into, but I don't know yet.
Yeah, I think, we'll take a little bit of time, but I wouldn't be surprised if it comes to an issue as far as having a flag football.
We did have a little conversation about potentially lacrosse. And right now we haven't had a lot of people come and asking about it, maybe 1 or 2 here or there. But Nick Gill, our athletic director, is confident if we do get some requests from students, we may be able to join a co-op with say Wilkes-Barre area, who's already in the highest level. We do have a co-op with wrestling with Redeemer. However, to join a co-op with Redeemer for lacrosse, that would put them in the highest bracket for competition. So I don't know if they'd ever want to do that. But Wilkes-Barre area is already in that highest division. So Nick felt confident that they'd be able to do that if we had the interest.
Brian, I have a question. For the high school track, is there anything else we need to look at with like we had to get a groomer for the turf? Does that require any additional, should we look, do we need something else to go with it? I don't know.
No, not that I know of, not that they recommend it. Again, it is obviously with the track, they they tear it up. Like it's a rubber coating that goes over the track. So if you ever seen the track shoes, they're metal spikes that they run on with it. So they
Yeah.
dig it up pretty good. So
I took a tour of the track and I could see how tore up it is from them running on it. But I was just wondering, like, we got a groomer for the stadium. And was there something that additional?
there's nothing that I know of for it. I think that, the track and I know St. Stephen's, we actually, when we made some renovations in there, we actually did, get a little bit of a grant that Plymouth actually had done to help us pay for some of those renovations. So we allow, if requested, people to use that facility. I'm not sure how many people actually do use it other than our students. But that's same with the track, where the track, I know we open that at certain times and, some people go walking around there for whatever. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Vasquez, very much. Mr. Keating, do you have anything tonight?
Just a few things, Mr. Camus. We continue to work with the business manager on our budget. One thing I'd like to report, I went to an exit meeting with Fidelity Bank, leaving my position in Kingston, and I asked them if I could wear both hats when I attended that meeting yesterday, actually. And with just simply asking, they agreed to increase the interest rates for both Kingston and Wyoming Valley West equivalently by 25 basis points. So that means our rate's going from 4.59% to 4.84%. Back in November, we were at 1.76%. And that number has, by just doing a little bit of work here, brought us in when we have peak revenues over $80,000 a month.
Yes.
And extra revenue by doing that when our revenues are at their peak. And I'd just like to point out really quick, we have made a lot of progress over the last couple of years, but when you look at the auditor's bar graph going back to 2014 up until 2021, the district was routinely deficit spending. And when these one-time sources of federal money go away and things cycle out, we are not far away, if we don't make wise decisions here, from eating into a fund balance that we worked very difficult at establishing, and we begin deficit spending again. We don't have money just to throw around or to make decisions that aren't wise. And I want every board member to be cognizant of that as we get close to finalizing this budget.
Thank you, and I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, we worked very hard to try to bring that up. We just got to be very cautious of how we do it. I mean, our buildings are depleting, and yes, we know we have to put money in, but you got to be careful.
And again, last thing I'll say is, like I said at our prior meeting, interest rates are not on our side right now to borrow, but we're capturing gain by having a 4.84% rate on our general banking right now. I think it's time to plan on what our priorities are for these buildings, potentially be able to use some of that fund balance to be combined with good debt service a few years from now to address the major deficiencies within our district.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. Anything else, Mr.?
I have nothing else.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keating. Mr. McGinley, under Education and Policy.
Thank you. First of all, I want to congratulate the board from what they've done over the past many years to correct the fund balance and produce some extra money through really good physical policies and decisions. So I think that's something everyone on the board should be proud of. As far as education and policy, As everyone knows, as you close on the end of the year, the focus goes on all the end of the year activities, and which it should. So we haven't spent any time really on policy, and obviously the education right now, we're trying to get to the end of the year. I had an opportunity to go to some of the programs at the end of the year that have been going on. They've done a great job. They should be proud of what the programs have produced and the type of activities the students have been involved in. I look forward to getting through the end of the year so we get back on policies and procedures. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McGinley. Mr. Hardwick, you don't have anything this evening, do you?
Mr. Camus, I don't. I can't see what you folks do see, but I'm sensing that by the quietness, it's probably not a packed auditorium. So I'd like to defer ESSERS and special education to next Wednesday, unless there were any direct questions anyone had.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Hardwick? No, Bill, we're good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick.
Mr. Dickon, do you have anything this evening you'd like to address?
Yes, just briefly, we met as a safety committee on May 30th, and just to close up the year, talked about the upcoming RVAT site assessments. We're still waiting to get a date when that's going to get scheduled, which is the Pennsylvania State Police come in and they'll assess our buildings for safety and security. And we went over some of the recent camera upgrades that we have done in the buildings and some of the projects that we'll be implementing over the summer and for next year. So I just want to let the board know that that team has met, and then we'll have more meetings in the future. Any questions for me?
So our first meeting with our contractor, we discussed about putting the wires in now before the ceilings go up. Did we ever get any more traction on that?
Yes, we had met, myself, Mr. Bond, Mr. Waskevich, and identified some of our areas that aren't currently covered, which are some weird angles in some hallways and of course our stairwells. We are currently working with our in-house electrician. He's going to run all the wires to those areas. And then before they put the ceiling grid up, and that way the wiring, the Cat 5, everything will be there, and then we'll work on then purchasing cameras for those sites.
Awesome.
So that's
Thank you.
already in process.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Perfect.
Anyone else? Thank you.
I'd just like to add, I attended the safety meeting. It was a very positive meeting. There's a lot of good things going on in the district. We're constantly improving in safety and security. I think we placed new cameras in a bunch of dark spots that we have in the district where compared to other districts, I strongly believe that we're right up there with technology and safety. So that was really good to hear. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dickon. Buildings and grounds. Mr. King, if you would help us. So the question was raised about our floor. Mr. Bond, it was a little bit more of a neutral color. Were you ever able to get us more samples for this board? So Mr. Bond and Mr. Cordes could pick out.
Yes, I believe that Barry Lyons dropped off some samples for you. At
They went over those this morning during the site log meeting, yes.
Okay.
And you preferred well, you're going to pick whatever you pick.
Right.
But it seemed like you were going to steer away from the burgundy and gold because it might make it a little bit too dark in the cafeteria, and you're looking for some more neutral colors. I believe that.
Yeah,
and
they were working on that today.
Okay.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we'll wait until we get that.
Mr. Bond wanted a little bit more of a lighter color, and Mr. Cordes had some concerns with the cleanliness and being able to clean that textured floor
Sure.
a little bit. So we're good there.
Yep.
That's really all I have on buildings and grounds this morning.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, Rick, on the quick topic, I know we've all tried to help and do what we can, but regarding the funding for that, has there been any further developments of use of the cafeteria funds?
There has not at
And
this
this could be-
point.
Can
Can I jump?
Yes, please.
Rick, it's Rob, business manager. So the state did reach out to us last Wednesday, I believe, with 6 questions. We answered them on Thursday. I sent them an email and we are still waiting a response from the answering of those 6 questions.
Okay, thank you.
So I asked Mr. Kuchar to reach out to us next week and remind us if we don't hear anything back, just to let me know, so we could maybe try stepping on a little bit to see if we can get answers.
So I'll reach out tomorrow by email to the person again, just for a status update.
Thank you, Rob.
Anything else, Mr. Hardwick?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Rick, for letting me attend by Zoom.
Yeah, no problem. I'd like to hand it over to Mr. Kubuski because I think he has a couple questions.
I do. First, we can go back to the middle school. We did meet this morning. They did work on the colors. Mr. Cordes did, and I believe Mr. Bond figured that out. One of the things that I had brought up this morning was about getting the drain lines cambered in the cafeteria before we put all that money into the floor. I know you and I had spoke about that. So that's something I guess we would like to go forward with, right? And not put a floor down without making sure there's no problems in those drain lines.
Sure. I mean, we could reach out to Mr. Cordes and, ask him to get a couple quotes on some cameras.
Yeah, he had spoke about that this morning. I guess the district has used Drain Tech in the past. I guess just recently up at State Street. That's just one of the things that was mentioned this morning. The rain garden in Plymouth that has a lot of people asking what's going on there. That is almost done, it looks like.
Yes.
I was by it today. I was told that by July 4th, that should be all done and cleaned up. The fence should be going in soon.
Correct.
So there's only, it looks like the fencing and the shrubbery is what's left to go in. I would like to talk about Dana Street, that building in general. I'm not sure where we stand with the roof grant. Do we have any updates? Maybe
We probably won't know for about a year. At least 9 months.
That was applied for.
Yeah, it was submitted.
so that's how.
Absolutely.
Andrew Swally is on, and he asked if he could speak. He's
Certainly.
the one that actually submitted the grant
Mhm.
on behalf of Valley West, so I don't know if we can get Andrew.
Hi, this is Andrew Zwally with SiteLogic. Hopefully you all can hear me.
Yes.
But the grant application was submitted on Friday. A copy of that was shared with Mr. Tosh and the administration. We believe that DCD is saying that they plan to make awards in September. I think that's a little bit wishful thinking, but that's at least what they've communicated. So that will hopefully gives you a little bit of a timeline perspective of their timeline. I just would say that timeline is likely subject to change. And then if I could, it came up this morning regarding cammering the lines in the cafeteria at the middle school. We're doing a review of the drawings, at least the existing drawings that we have, to review what utility lines or sewage lines may run underneath the cafeteria floor. Again, this was a cursory review and we can work with the administration on this, but we believe that those lines actually aren't running underneath the floor, but within the walls, underneath the walls of the cafeteria. But we can do a further analysis of this to review, which may help us with the timing of that flooring replacement.
Okay. Well, yes, if you can, please review that to make sure that, there isn't anything under there.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at the drawings that we have at least, and we can help facilitate that as necessary.
Excellent. Andrew, Mr. Keating,
Just one quick. Is the grant for the roof a matching grant?
Yes, so the actual scope of the project is the roof, and I believe it's roof, the secured entry at the rear and front of the building.
Very, very good. I'm only asking so we could include that match.
And if
in
I'm
our-
not
Yeah,
mistaken,
so it's 25% of the total project value.
And it was windows on Dana Street as
Yes.
well, correct?
Yes.
Yes, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe the total was around 4.2 to 4.5 million, so 25% of that.
Yes.
Rick, I'll send that, Mr. Camus, I'll send that application to board members tomorrow morning.
Okay, perfect.
Just quick, Rob, is that match in our budget?
it's not in the budget because it's operating. I'm assuming that would have came out of capital.
Okay.
I could
I'm just, because that's a decision, again, just so the board knows that that match, we're saying 4 million, we're talking $1 million. That's either knocking off the capital fund or,
Yes.
or knocking off the fund balance with additional
Yes.
expenses in our budget. Just, I'm only throwing that out there so we're all on the same page.
Mr. Kubuska, anything else?
Yes, so again, with Dana Street, our last meeting, some of the board members said, bring forth, some top priorities that you felt and I felt needed to be addressed. Dana Street is my biggest concern with the roof. We're looking at September as our earliest to know if we're gonna get a grant. So realistically, we're looking at next summer before we touch that roof.
Correct.
And if we don't get the grant money, all that goes away, meaning doors, security, all the upgrades that was placed in that grant. So as a board, I think we should be looking at Dana Street's roof to be replaced or an alternative to that building. Because that building does need a great deal of work. And with,
Mark, if I may interrupt for a moment, are you suggesting? What are you really suggesting with that? We start budgeting for a roof now and then wait to see if we get the grant, or what are you trying to?
well, I think we need to put a roof on it, but if we're not gonna keep that building and build a new building there, there's been talk about that over the years. I'm new here, so I'm not sure how the whole budget process and planning big repairs like this, and that,
I think one plus is having site log, and if we lobby our local senators and reps properly, we should have some type of a decent shot, I would hope, at the grant. But I mean, talking about the bigger scale things that you're bringing up, like potentially building a bit, that's going to take a while to plan. And again, our unreserved fund balance is only $8 million. And you have to take a look at our debt service, which is also a factor of what's carrying forward as to how we make this affordable, because, you will be looking at significantly increasing taxes without having the proper funding in place to plan for, and part of that funding is going to be a borrowing or some type of refunding or amortizing of the debt that we currently have. And as I said earlier, rates are not on our side right now to do that.
and I understand all that. I'm just saying we need to plan something for Dana Street before we're in trouble with the roof. And it looks like, from what I'm hearing, next summer would be the soonest we could put a roof on it. And if we don't get the grant, it's coming out of our budget.
so
I'm just bringing it forward to say Dana Street's a problem that we can't keep ignoring.
I don't
At
know.
least a roof.
I don't know what a roof would cost, but if you're gonna do 1.25 for a match and you don't get the grant, I would think you could then take that 1.25 and at least spend that on the roof.
Correct.
I think the roof might have been 2 million. Does that sound right, Bill? You
Like
know that
1.5.
number?
Is the building in that bad of a shape?
Probably.
The roof is.
Andrew, are you still on there? Because he's the one that ran the number.
Yeah, we estimated the roof at roughly $2 million. I can pull up that exact figure.
Janet, if we
And I
don't take
think,
care of the
Mark,
roof, the rest of the building's gonna be a
The
bigger
backup,
project.
as Rob said, is it might be wise to budget a significant portion of the match through the general fund, having a backup of the capital reserves to apply toward a roof only if the grant fell through.
So let me just reiterate, you asked me the question earlier about the capital, is the roof in the budget? When I did the budget, I did put $1 million transfer to capital projects. Now, if this roof, becomes a necessity within the next 12 months, instead of transferring that million to capital projects, I would think as long as you use it for a capital project, it would be a viable option.
Correct, but then again, the balance of that will come off of our capital
Yes.
reserves.
Yes.
It'll come off our capital reserve. We haven't put the money into the capital yet, right?
No, we have a balance in our capital. There are two accounts, Tim.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, the money he's talking about, that $1 million.
Yeah, that's not in the, so
That's
there's
not
three
there.
and a half, approximately three, I think, or 3.5 in capital projects bank account.
Okay.
I budgeted another $1 million to go in this upcoming budget,
This
but
types of emergencies or whatever.
yeah, but if that emergency obviously becomes a need in the
Right.
next year, instead of transferring it, you would use that $1 million.
Okay.
That's my first one. I just wanted to bring Dana Street up, that it's something we really have to look at if that grant does not work fully out. The second one would be the wellness center. Brian, I believe that's what you said is that St. Stephen's?
It is.
Yeah.
All right, so the wellness center and the building next door, which I believe was the old rectory, is now offices in there.
Special education offices.
Right.
Yep.
Those two roofs really should be looked at and priced. I'm concerned for the wellness center. That's a beautiful building inside, a lot of equipment, a lot of use in there. I believe that roof may be leaking. There are shingles off of it. I would just hate to see us start losing the ceiling that's in the first floor there. That's a beautiful ceiling in there, but and that is a asphalt shingles, so it's not a rubber roof. Again, I don't know the cost. I don't know who would get us that pricing, but I think we should be looking at that as a buildings and grounds concern for that wellness center. It may be something that if you put those two roofs on, maybe one contractor will give you a better price. I'm just putting that out there, but that roof does have some issues going on there. And then the third one would be the high school. I know we're doing the STEM lab up there. There's some cosmetic stuff that could be done. The carpeting in that building is lacking desire. And a lot of the shades are missing. So when the sun is out, I think it's pretty bright in some of those rooms, probably makes the rooms a little bit hotter. And we have discussed painting over different buildings, something for us to consider going forward, maybe in the next year, to look at getting some things painted in some of the buildings. Rick, possibly the hallways in this building? Was
Yeah,
a thought?
so I think before they wrap up in here, we should consider getting the hallways painted and the auditorium painted. I mean, I don't think it's been painted in 20+ years.
I do think the hallways makes a lot of sense because that's where a lot of work's being done.
Yep.
You're putting new ceilings up and new grid up. Now's the time to do it.
Yep. Absolutely.
And then the high school, the top of the concourse, if you're going up the steps on the right-hand side, some of those panels are pretty rough shape. That would be one of the top things I would say at the high school we should look at addressing possibly over the summertime before the next winter comes in. They're just deteriorated, and I'm sure we have a lot of water damage coming in now. I don't know how many panels there are. There might be 3 or 4 there.
There's probably about 10 or 12
Well,
that are
there's-
damaged. They're duct taped together currently as we speak.
Yes, I know. So I think that's all I currently have, but they're the 3 that Dana Street's my main concern right now.
Well, I think we're gonna be sitting in a hold pattern with Dana Street for a little bit. I mean, I don't want to be redundant, but Turkey Street's a problem too. We have we have an employee in that building. It's in deplorable condition. And the roof is actually older than Dana. That we're gonna have to transfer a lot. We have nowhere to put all the product, and this district should really be looking at putting up another warehouse building two somewhere. So we have a place to store some of our stuff.
With the amount of distribution channels now available that weren't available 10 years ago, why do we even store a lot of that stuff?
Don't know. It's been a quest of mine since I came out 5 years ago. Fastenal has a great storage locker system that they come to your building, they'll put in all your cleaning supplies. And they deliver right to your building. They deliver right to your
So does
building.
Amazon.
So they come in.
I really think we need to look over the way there's no reason we should be storing stuff for the whole year. It
Correct.
should be on demand for everything, the way.
When the product comes out, Fastenal comes in, they restock the lockers. We know how many rolls of toilet paper in there, how many are taken out
Right.
in a day.
Yeah.
It's a computer track system and they monitor it, and it's very simple to do. There's a lot of ways we could throw up a little pole building down here, throw one up at State Street. The building's deplorable now.
That could be a new role for our new operations building and grounds, which by the way, for the building and grounds question, have we received a lot of applications for that position?
150 plus going on.
And do we have any estimate of when we might interview for those positions, or?
So we wanted to get through these first, this round of the teachers first, and then hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we'll maybe get started. But while we're on Turkey Street, has anybody been by Turkey Street lately to look at and see how all the cars parked behind the place? And it does
Boats, RVs.
boats, RVs, cars.
We could turn that into a rental facility.
Definitely could.
Yeah.
Getting back to the applicants, Brian, I reviewed 50 of them so far for the buildings and grounds director.
Okay, anything else?
Yes, I would like to mention a couple items if I could. We're getting very close to presenting and passing a budget for 24-25. I would like to ask for an amendment to provide the libraries, the Hoyt Library and the Plymouth Library, they've each been receiving the same contribution for at least 3 years or more. Hoyt Library is at $60,000 and the Plymouth Library is at $25,000. I would like to ask to consider the Hoyt Library go to $75,000 and Plymouth Library go to $30,000. If we could include that in the budget.
Do we know what percentage that is of their total budget?
Not much.
We have not received a request for an increase in fees from either entity.
Kingston and Valley West by far give the most amount of money to the Hoyt Library. Kingston gives $100,000. Valley West is currently 60, and some of the smaller communities don't give anything or next to nothing. The Kingston and Valley West are the two main funding sources of the library.
Yep, I agree. But
Hey, Brian, this is Hardwick. Being the Valley Web representative who sits on the Hoyt Library Board, I can gladly get that information for you. I don't have it in front of me, but I can get that information for you so you can see the breakdown of the revenue that does come into the library. At least for Hoyt, I can't speak for Plymouth.
I could speak for Plymouth. I will also get that same information. But on that same note, the STEM lab that's going in the high school library, Ms. Carey told me that Plymouth Library has taken all the unwanted books. So, the Plymouth Library is now going to take those books and work to distribute them to other libraries that could use them. So the library is working with the high school.
Good.
one other comment, I should say. Obviously, we've been talking about the STEM lab at the high school, which I think is a very critical part of our academic program. And I think that's something that we have to really, hopefully, we'll approve everything shortly so they can get to work on it so that in the fall it's ready. We're also talking about the track. And I think most people probably recognize I'm very interested in athletics myself over the years, and track has been one of the programs that I've spent a lot of time with, and we do need some work there. But if it comes down to the money to be spent, really, in my mind, the STEM lab is number one. And then if there's any possibilities or potentials that we have the money to pay for the track, I'm for that also. But I would like to make sure that we take care of the STEM lab and make sure that they have the monies available that they can do the work and have it ready for next school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGinley. Mr. Kuchar, is the $385,000 in the, you have that inserted into the current second reading of the budget
The 385
for the track?
for the track. No, I was told it will be because I was told it's gonna come from capital. So there'll be a transfer in. So
Okay.
an increase of revenues of, well, it was gonna be 400,000. That was the estimate as of last week. And then there'd be an additional 400,000 expense. So it would be an offset and not have an effect on the bottom line of the budget. However, it would decrease your capital projects account by the 400,000.
Okay. Mr. Tosh, didn't we get word today something?
We that's where I was gonna go next. We did receive word today. We made a request to the Pennsylvania Department of Education to revise our ESSERS 3 20% lost learning money for our STEM tutoring lab. I want to compliment our consultant, Kim Wallach, who I asked, and she asked PDE and was able to get good news today that we were indeed allowed to transfer that. So we will take 360,000 additional dollars, drop that into the STEM lab. And as I've said before, hopefully we're going to have a first-class STEM lab, tutoring lab up at the high school, which will be a real boost to the academic environment up there.
So, Mr. McGinley, if I may, and Mr.
Yes.
Tosh, please correct me if I'm wrong, or Mr. Kuchar, I believe the STEM lab finances are all accounted for.
Well, that's great news. If I could see that in black and white, so to speak, not that I want to just see what the expenses are versus what revenue sources we have at this time.
There were, my understanding, and I'll get that information, $150,000 for materials that we've already spent, and with the additional 360,000 for construction, that'll bring us up to the $510,000 based on PDE approving the revision of ESSERS 3 today.
Now, you said that 150 we've already spent?
Yeah, it was it was already approved.
Approved. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Camus, may I make a quick comment?
Certainly.
Just regarding the Hoyt Library and the finance request. First, thank you, Mr. McGinley, for putting that forward. I appreciate it. The reason there has been no formal request coming forward for additional funds for the library, we, as an executive board, have had to sort through some items over at the library where we just approved our 2025 budget. I'm sorry, our 2024 budget last month at our monthly meeting. And we approved it in part. There's still some parts that we still have to work out. So I did not feel comfortable coming to the school board asking for more money when we had not finalized our budget. So I just wanted to explain. I will, as a board member of the Hoyt Library, I would never turn down an offer if someone says, hey, can we give you more money? But I wasn't going to come and request it when we did not know our financial circumstances and have a fully approved budget. So I just wanted to explain that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Harder. Mr. Tosh, let me kick it off to you under your comments. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
The only other thing I have, for the board is tomorrow night culminates the end of the year for our class of 2024 graduation, 6 o'clock at Spartan Stadium with our beautiful new turf. Have been down there watching graduation practice. The staff has the facility in terrific shape. So we're very excited about that. In the event that the weather doesn't cooperate, and if we unfortunately need to cancel, we'll bump it back to Friday night. We should hopefully have a decision if the weather is inclement by about 4 o'clock, depending on the forecast. And we will communicate that via robocall and some remind apps to parents, as well as on the district website. And I should add that one of our employees who does a great job in our math department, Ryan Prohaska, he will stream live graduation, and the link will be provided on our district website. The broadcast will begin at approximately 5:50. It'll conclude 5 minutes after the completion of the ceremony. The stream can be viewed on the Wyoming Valley West graduation YouTube account. Again, we'll have a link up tomorrow. There's no need to sign up for the account. All you need is the link. And I think probably maybe, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 years ago, Ryan Prohaska started doing that, and it provides a great resource for some of our parents who are in the military that are unable to attend and they're overseas to see their children graduate. So very excited about graduation tomorrow night at Spartan Stadium, 6 o'clock.
How many graduates?
Mr. Dickton, did we get a final number? I think we're just over 300.
Nice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pretty cool. Okay, moving on to the general recommended action items. Does anybody have any questions? Under staff recommended action items, does anybody have any questions? Does anybody have any questions for our business manager? Okay. Anybody else have any additional comments they would like to add?
I didn't know we wanted to talk about the carrier contract.
Oh, thank you very, very much. I totally went right through my head. Yes, please bring that up.
Okay, so we got, I apparently, our current building and grounds personnel had went and, had come to me and said that our chiller at the high school, I believe, needs some work that's supposed to be done every 5 years, I
Correct.
believe. And I don't know when the last time it was done.
4 years ago.
Okay, so it's a carrier invoice for $69,600 for repairs, I guess, that are needed. Apparently, from what I understand, again, I'm not a building and grounds person, it is no longer holding Freon.
Correct.
So this process that needs to be done to correct that issue. So again, he gave me a quote for 69.6, but for some reason, I think there's gonna be another part of that
Yes,
that I did not get yet.
it's gonna be roughly another additional 60,000.
So we're talking $150,000 of repairs on one piece of equipment. From what I'm told, this chiller, if it needed to be replaced, would be $1 million project or
Correct.
close to it. So my question, I guess, is to discuss with the board whether they want to move forward with this purchase or repair or.
So I believe definitely because it's general maintenance and it's recommended and then required.
Right.
So I believe that the board is in full support of doing that. The second piece of that, Mr. Kucharek, I think what we need to do is get with our engineering firm and actually look at the cost of replacement. And because if everybody remembers, we just bought from Carrier, we just bought the last control board that's available for that unit last year to the tune of, I don't remember what it was, $8,000 or something like that. So I think the unit itself has exceeded its life expectancy of 40 years, or 40 plus years. So I think we should maybe work with our engineers and start or start figuring out a changing plan to redo that.
Okay.
So yes, I believe you have full board approval to authorize him to do that.
Okay. Secondly, I guess there was some piping repairs in the cooling throughout the high school,
Yes,
$16,000.
correct.
I just got those yesterday. It's basically, it looks like it's 10 individual repairs, you know, ranging from $1,131 per repair to $1,900 per repair.
Yes.
So again, that's a repair. I'm not sure if it was in the budget when Frank had, previous year's budget. So
So what he's referring to is, there's 6-inch pipe up above the ceilings.
some are 4-inch.
And what kind of valves are they called that are leaking? There's a,
You're asking the wrong person.
it's actually a valve that, one of the valves is leaking.
Who did the work?
So the quotes from 3B.
No one's done it. That's the
No
problem.
one's done it yet. The
Oh,
quotes
okay.
from
I thought
3.
this was an invoice to.
No one's
it's a-
done it.
It's a proposal. Basically.
Who's the proposal for?
B&E?
3B services.
3B. He's working on another proposal from Scranton Electric, so.
Some of them are 6-inch. Victolic.
One of
lines.
the valves are leaking, and Dave's not comfortable, nor should he have to be.
Yeah, so.
So we would sub it out.
So right now it's a total of 84,000 for what we have a proposal for, on top of routine maintenances from Carrier for 1, 2, or 3 year for another 10,000. Now that is budgeted, 9,000
Right.
budgeted. So
What work was done? Wasn't there work done there last year? I'm
So
not,
last year, the control panel for the chiller went out.
did we replace a chiller there?
no,
No.
Or some kind of air conditioning within the last couple of years?
Up on top we did.
I haven't heard about all of this. This is the first time I'm.
but again, I just got it in the last couple days.
I believe you have full support of the board to authorize him to do that.
Okay.
Are we getting more pricing?
Well, the Carrier product for the chiller is the price.
Carrier product.
It's Carrier product.
The
He is
piping.
getting more pricing on the pipe valves.
So we're just buying the material from Carrier. Is that what you're? well,
Carrier's coming in and redoing the chiller for us. They're gonna suck down the system, rechange the system, because it's leaking right now.
Okay, so Carrier, the manufacturer is doing this. work.
Correct.
Okay,
That's the 69,600.
that's, so there's leaks in the chiller that they're gonna.
Address.
Yes.
Okay.
And then on top of that, there is a yearly maintenance agreement that we have with them for 10,000. I think it's for software upgrades.
Paul, I'd just like to point out to some of what you were saying earlier and money and going forward. I mean, this would be a real shock to us if we had to replace this in the near future without planning for it.
Yes.
Absolutely, a $1.1 million unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's not gonna go down next year or the year after. It's,
Correct.
so these are things that need to be looked at. And hopefully the new buildings and grounds person will be doing a lot of that for us.
Thank you, Rob, very much.
Okay.
I'll be real, I'm not. All right, our next meeting will be, next Wednesday, June 12th. It'll be here at 7 PM. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion.
Motion and a second.